Most important is the vehicle identification number.
Please fasten your seatbelts. Thank you.
Some innovations like a goat sack, automatic seat belts, and dangerous child seats are absurdly more weirder than others. Let's go over the 25 vehicle innovations that did not stand the test of time. Number 25. Goat sack. Goat sack options seem to have vanished from car manufacturers' list. Perhaps that's why CUVs became so popular. They offered ample cargo space for goats. While these cars can handle a goat, minivans are the true llama haulers. Rentals also work in a pinch, of course. Sadly, passenger seats aren't ideal for goat transportation, especially goats which love to eat the rug. Cars just aren't built for livestock the way they used to be. On a lighter note, we'd pay money watching someone try to get this thing on a goat. We assume the only viable option is to lure it onto the thing with food, then raise the sides while it's still eating. This metal-grade enclosure separated from the passenger cabin offered a secure spot for transporting livestock like goats, sheep, or poultry. These compartments weren't just for farm use. Hunters might utilize them for their dogs, and families could use them for extra cargo on road trips. Number 24. Ignition code. Being able to type in a code before you remove the ignition key, and the car requiring that code to restart on the next ignition attempt, is a security feature we could use nowadays. This provided an extra layer of security, especially in unfamiliar areas. BMW pioneered this concept in the 1970s, and Subaru adopted it in certain markets for the WRX due to its high theft rates. Tesla's Pin to Drive is a modern iteration of this idea. While not ubiquitous, keypad entry systems demonstrate a long-standing approach to vehicle security that could be more widely implemented to combat modern theft methods. Keypad entry systems, while offering security, fell out of favor. They added complexity, requiring memorizing codes, and could malfunction, leaving drivers stranded. Modern cars rely on integrated key fobs and immobilizer systems for a more seamless and reliable security solution. Number 23. An actual spare tire. This one will cause you to slap yourself on the forehead. If a Tesla M3 blew a tire, which has no spare, you could call their roadside assistance to get them to deliver a spare, and then you have to return it when you're done. Most owners buy a full spare kit, tire, jack, lug wrench, mounting hardware, for newer cars for around $200. There's actually a lot more room in an EV because there's no gas tank or fuel system. The Model 3 has a whole sub-trunk that is huge, where the gas tank normally is. They absolutely could have designed room for a spare, they just didn't. We'd say they omitted a spare for weight, efficiency, but it's a capitalist company. They did it to save money. The subscription economy is on a roll, and experts predict it will continue to expand in the future. All the cars you make will come with a spare tire, but the flap is locked remotely until your customers pay a subscription. Number 22. Repairability and maintenance. Having to remove yards of plastic covers to simply drain the oil is terrible engineering, to say the least. Engineers who never have to turn a wrench, plus MBAs that want to drive sales for the service departments by making do-it-yourself a huge pain. This is the efficiency you've been told capitalism always brings. Most times that efficiency is applied to removing money from your wallet. This is why people are going electric, since even the basic gas motors are now full of plastic parts, very inaccessible and basically unrepairable outside of repair shops. There's a lot fewer moving parts in EVs too. No spark plugs, oil changes, transmission fluid, etc. Newer cars often prioritize design and efficiency over ease of maintenance. Simple tasks like brake changes, which were once accessible to do-it-yourself enthusiasts, can now require specialized tools or even professional expertise. This shift can be frustrating for those accustomed to working on older, more mechanically accessible vehicles. Number 21. The Chevy Avalanche's midgate. We'd argue that it wasn't just hype. It's still a very desirable feature. The Chevrolet Avalanche, discontinued in 2013, boasted a unique feature, the midgate. This ingenious design allowed the vehicle to transform from a crew cab pickup with a short bed to a regular cab with a long bed by folding down the midgate and rear seats. Despite its practicality and enthusiastic following, evidenced by the high resale value of Avalanches in good condition, the midgate concept hasn't been widely adopted by other manufacturers. Some speculate that the potential for cabin dust and the increasing popularity in spacious SUVs might have contributed to this. Unlike standard trucks, Avalanches combined cargo capacity with a shorter overall footprint, making them garage-friendly. Though discontinued, their devoted fan base highlights the enduring appeal of this innovative design. Number 20. Talking cars.
Left door is open.
In the 1980s, a wave of talking cars emerged, with brands like Nissan or Datsun featuring voice warnings. For example, the door is ajar. While charmingly retro, these early systems relied on simple recordings and lacked the sophistication of modern voice assistants. Regulations and market preferences likely played a role in their decline, with some preferring a subtle ding over a digital voice. However, voice-activated features are making a comeback. Japan, for instance, embraces in-car voice assistants, while Mercedes is exploring voice control for climate adjustments. The future might see cars integrate seamlessly with virtual assistants like Alexa, allowing for on-the-go information retrieval and entertainment. For drivers unfamiliar with their vehicles, voice prompts could alert them to leaving headlights on or a door ajar, preventing potential battery drain or security risks. In a time before digital displays and complex dashboards, these audible clues offered a clear and immediate way to communicate car status, especially for those who might have difficulty processing visual information. Number 19. Car phones. This was a major flex in the early 1990s. Those stockbroker brick cell phones were pretty similar to what you got in the car, except split into two pieces with a thin corded handset. Once phones got to pocket size, there wasn't much reason to have a car phone. The cost of having one and using it for calls was a lot more than now. And it was just voice calls, no text or data then, except having a cell phone modem to connect them. Mercedes offered a built-in car phone in the mid-1980s, which was an integral part of the armrest with the bulk of the electronic equipment in the trunk. It was a really basic service, albeit a big flex for rich people, because it used to be really expensive. Many of the high-end cars in the 1980s and 1990s used to have at least the option to have this installed. Number 18. Corinthian Leather. It is not an actual type of leather at all. It is a marketing term. The Chrysler Automobile Company introduced it in 1974 to describe premium leather seat material. Celebrity Ricardo Montalban helped popularize the term in Cordoba car ads, leading to years of increased sales. Montalban had a wonderful accent, and when he said Corinthian, it sounded so nice. He could have sold ice cubes to Eskimos with that smooth voice and classy accent. Corinthian leather isn't used in modern cars today due to advancements in synthetic materials. These newer materials offer similar aesthetics and comfort while being more durable, cost-effective, and environmentally friendly. Additionally, changing consumer preferences and stricter regulations on leather sourcing have contributed to its decline. The best was when Ricardo Montalban was on a talk show, Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, and he was asked, "What is Corinthian leather?" He instantly responded, "I have no idea." Number 17. Children car seats. These were the car seats in the 1940s, as if kids actually sat in those. They'd just fall out of them constantly, even without any braking or crashing involved. Clearly, the designers never had children. After that, you graduated to the very back of the station wagon or pickup truck. When what we recognize as car seats were first proposed seriously in the early 1970s, they were considered ridiculous, the stuff of neurotics and paranoids, a joke. Thing is, anyone who could read statistics was putting their kid in one. Instant 70% reduction in a leading cause of death. Unheard of public health. Reactionaries called them un-American, big government, overreach. By 1985, car seats were mandatory in most of the U.S. Number 16. Tail fins. Tail fins for cars only stuck around for a little over a decade. It started first as pointy little nubs, and then as big fins, peaking in 1959 with Cadillac producing the most iconic pair of tail fins ever. Fins started with the 1948 Cadillacs and reached their zenith in 1959. By 1962, most marquees had abandoned them. But many European cars that had significant sales in the U.S. sprouted fins in the late 1950s and didn't drop them until the late 1960s or even early 1970s. Sunbeam sold the Alpine with fins through 1968, and Mercedes sold their W110 fintail models until the same year. Triumph's Herald had fins, and it was on sale as late as 1971. Tail fins were primarily aesthetic rather than functional. While visually striking, they were detrimental to aerodynamics. Tail fins disrupted smooth airflow over the car's body, increasing drag and reducing fuel efficiency. Their large protruding surfaces created turbulence, which hindered the vehicle's streamlined movement. Additionally, tail fins added unnecessary weight and complexity to the car's design, without providing any aerodynamic benefits. As automotive design evolved, the focus shifted towards more aerodynamically efficient shapes that improved performance and fuel economy, leading to the decline of tail fins in favor of sleeker, more functional designs. Number 15. Wing windows. For those too young to remember vent windows, vinyl seats that left branding marks on your thighs, and car interiors that felt like ovens, cars used to have small triangular windows in front of the driver and passenger windows. These windows could be then opened outwards at an angle, which would allow the air to pour in at a time when air conditioning wasn't widespread in cars. It was nice until a bee whacks it and lands right in your lap and you scream. The driver would say something like, "Just don't bother the bee," but we're pretty sure anyone would be bothered if they got whacked by a Ford at 55 miles an hour. These days, wing windows, or smoker's windows as some people called them, have been replaced due to their impractical design on aerodynamics, and they remain a memory of our childhood as every dad's favorite air conditioning system. Number 14. Mechanical knobs. Although our younger Gen Z viewers may not agree, the replacement of mechanical knobs with screens in cars has been a disaster. Those of us who have spent time in older cars still miss the clunky feel and satisfaction of turning the knobs and watching them do their magic. Not like today, when a simple touch on a screen would turn a fan on instead of adjusting the volume. Mechanical knobs were everywhere in old cars, from being used to control the ventilation to tuning into your favorite radio station for the Sunday blues. Many still remember when the driver would tell them to open up the windows and everyone's hand would automatically reach for the nearest lever. The adoption of touchscreen technology has troubled many automobile enthusiasts due to their distracting design and liability to glitch more than often, leading to more accidents than usual. Number 13. Flip-up headlights. Back in the 1970s and 1980s, automobile manufacturers added a sleek design change to luxury cars that would make any sci-fi enthusiast lose their mind. Flip-up headlights were the buzz of the sports car industry, and for all the right reasons. A simple touch of a button could make your car wink at people. How cool was that? But shenanigans aside, these flip-up headlights were both practical and efficient in their function, helping reduce air drag when they were down and saving precious fuel. Their aesthetic appeal made them stand out from the luxury car crowd, giving them an appearance straight out of a Blade Runner movie. Sure, they had their quirks. Sometimes one would pop up and the other would take a coffee break. But that was part of their charm. They were like the moody teenagers of car features. They were soon abandoned due to safety concerns and aerodynamic drag that they caused due to their design. Number 12. Cigarette lighters. Almost every single car owner with a cigarette lighter has had their finger burnt on one. There's just something strange about them that makes you want to stick your finger in to see if it's hot enough or not. Rare in modern cars, these cigarette lighters were a traditional feature in most old cars at a time when cigarette smoking was a trend and not something looked down upon. Often paired with ashtrays at the front and back, these accessories transformed your car into a proper smoking room. Meanwhile, these days, these lighters have since been replaced by power ports and other digital accessories to help you use your mobile phones, which are just as addictive as cigarettes. Tell you what though, this wasn't something that you wanted to fumble and drop in between your legs while driving, especially if you were wearing shorts. Number 11. Bench seats. The words classic American car might conjure memories of massive sedans, big engines, and in many cases, bench seats. Bench seats were wide, continuous seats that could usually accommodate 3 people, but that didn't stop parents going on a picnic from cramming as many children as they could fit on those. It was like the car equivalent of a slip and slide. The lack of seat belts meant that every car ride was a theme park ride. You just had to make sure you weren't the one in the middle, though. No lateral support on these cars meant a little hard corner would send you flying into the passenger seat. Now that does not sound safe at all. The continuous design provided a spacious and comfortable seating arrangement, especially for long drives. As safety regulations became stricter, bench seats were abandoned by manufacturers for the more safer, although less comfortable bucket seats found in modern cars. Number 10. Vinyl roof covers. Whether it was a fashion statement or just a cheaper alternative way to make your car look like a convertible, vinyl roofs were everywhere back in the 1970s. It's like a fancy jacket for your car's roof. It keeps it stylish and a bit mysterious. They came in different sizes to cover the roof: full vinyl, half vinyl, Landau tops, you name it. And while they did look sleek and sporty in the 1970s, that was not the case after a decade. People soon realized that it was just a bit of black plastic stretched over a car's roof. Water would then get often trapped underneath the vinyl, which would rapidly cause the metal roof underneath to deteriorate and rust away. But that did not stop insurance companies from cashing in. They would offer cheap vinyl roofs as a replacement for dented cars due to hailstorms. Dirty business as usual for them. Number 9. Foot press high beams. Imagine you're driving, getting into the groove of your favorite tunes by tapping your feet, and bam! Your car turns into a stadium floodlight. Don't worry, this effect was intended by car manufacturers. Old cars would come with special buttons on the floor panels of the driver's seats, which could turn the high beams on. This design was convenient and practical, enabling drivers to switch between lights at the push of a button, or shall we say a tap of a button. It's like a fidget spinner, except for your toes. Just tap out the beat of whatever song you're listening to while driving around at night. It was nice to slam on that switch when you needed to bright light someone, like slamming the phone down to hang up on someone. Although designed to withstand wear and tear, these switches were prone to be less responsive over time due to dirt and mud, which would force drivers to really stomp their feet at times. It was all fun and games until you had to shift gears while turning the high beams on. These foot-operated switches were eventually replaced with the multi-purpose stalks next to the steering wheels. We assume they weren't too happy with that one. Number 8. Automatic seatbelts. Automatic seatbelts sound futuristic and convenient, right? Our older viewers who have had to use them may beg to differ. Introduced at a time when seatbelt usage was dramatically low, automatic seatbelts were a dime a dozen in cars from the 1980s and 1990s. A typical automatic seatbelt would consist of a track that was mounted on the windshield pillar. Whenever the doors were closed and the ignition was turned on, these belts would lock into position over your chest and give you an automatic hug. Now you may be wondering what the catch is. Well, they came with a lap belt, which was manual, something that totally defeated the purpose of having an automatic seatbelt. So it's like a team effort. Car does the top, you do the bottom. Together, you're a seatbelt superhero. They also became a laughingstock in pop culture. Remember watching America's Funniest Home Videos and seeing one knock something out of a passenger's hand or choke the driver? Safety regulations and mandatory airbags for the drivers and passengers heralded an end to the automatic seatbelts, and so they've become a part of automobile history as something drivers would never want back. Number 7. Ttops. Ttops were a hit in the 1970s and 80s, making appearances on legends like the Corvette, Camaro, and Firebird. They were the hallmark of cool. If you had Ttops, you were automatically the king or queen of the road. They were quite infamous for their leakiness, though. That's why T-top convertibles were often called leakin' squeaks. Not to mention the time and effort it took to install and remove the pieces onto the roof. Nothing like having to carry around the roof pieces and then having to rush to put them on in a random summer storm. Despite their challenges, such as potential leaks and wind noise, T-tops remain a beloved feature among car enthusiasts and collectors. We pretty much get nothing but sunroofs and convertibles now. There's very few cars with targa tops and none with T-tops. In the 1970s and 80s, T-tops were iconic, offering an open-air experience without compromising structural integrity. Targa tops, featuring a removable roof section but retaining a fixed rear window, also provided a unique blend of coupe and convertible experiences. These designs have largely fallen out of favor due to several factors. Advances in convertible engineering have made full drop tops safer and more practical, while sunroofs offer a simpler, maintenance-free option for an airy cabin feel. Additionally, stringent safety regulations and consumer demand for sleeker, more aerodynamic designs have contributed to their decline. Despite their rarity today, T-tops and targa tops remain beloved by enthusiasts for their nostalgic appeal and distinctive driving experience, harkening back to a bygone era of automobile innovation and style. Number 6. Vents under the steering wheel. We aren't strangers to vents in our cars, but this one quirky and unique vent, which was placed in a strange spot, served the greatest purpose of them all. Old cars used to come with vents placed under the steering wheel to make sure the driver's seat wasn't deprived of some vital ventilation. With a magic trick that could turn a hot and humid summer day into a chilly, breezy afternoon in early spring, these vents had no haters whatsoever. Had car manufacturers kept the vent, the uptick in road rage incidents in the 1990s could have been completely avoided. Old cars with their vinyl seat covers were notorious for creating sweat puddles on hot and humid days, and that was the time for these vents to shine bright and come to the rescue. Driven into obscurity by self-cooling seats in modern cars, these vents have been abandoned by manufacturers. Many old drivers still remember, though, and miss these vents that would save both their lives and their jeans. Number 5. Rear hinged doors. Officially known as the coach doors or rear access doors, these doors were famous amongst customers by a different name, which was suicide doors. And no, it was not because these doors were used to commit suicide. So why then were they named that way? The answer lies in their design. These doors were inspired by horse carriages and opened in the same way. Hinged at the rear, these doors opened in an opposite way to conventional doors, giving passengers easier access to the rear seats, making them perfect for luxury cars and limousines. While it was elegant in its own way, the strange design was enough to scare any automobile engineer. Aerodynamic drag at high speeds meant that an unlocked door on the back converted the rear seats into surprise ejector seats, giving your passengers a quick exit, quite literally. Ensuring a proper seal against water and wind was also more challenging with rear hinged doors, leading to potential issues with leaks and noise. That is why there has been a big push by car safety experts in reducing their use over the years due to their dangerous design. Despite their quirks and the slightly scary name, suicide doors have a certain magic. They're a piece of automobile history that screams style and nostalgia. Number 4. Cassette and ATrack players. Cassette and ATrack players were revolutionary in their time, transforming how people enjoyed audio content in their cars and homes. These audio formats provided unprecedented convenience and portability, allowing users to curate and listen to their favorite content on the go. The ATrack player, introduced in the mid-1960s, was among the first widely adopted mobile formats. Its cartridge system allowed continuous playback without needing to flip the tape, a significant advantage over vinyl records. The ATrack quickly became a standard feature in many vehicles, offering a novel way to experience high-fidelity sound while driving. However, the format had its drawbacks, including the tendency to switch tracks mid-song due to its loop design, which could be frustrating for listeners. In the 1970s, the compact cassette tape began to overtake the 8-track player in popularity. Cassette tapes were smaller and more durable and offered better sound quality. They also introduced the ability to record content at home. This flexibility made cassette players a staple in both cars and homes. Car manufacturers started integrating cassette decks into vehicle dashboards, making it easy for drivers to swap out tapes and enjoy their library on the road. Despite their popularity, both formats eventually faced obsolescence due to the advent of digital technology. The rise of CDs in the 1980s marked the beginning of the end for cassettes and 8-tracks. CDs offered superior sound quality, greater storage capacity, and more convenient track selection. By the late 1990s, digital formats like MP3s and streaming services further marginalized physical media, emphasizing portability and instant access to vast music libraries. Cassettes and 8-track players are now nostalgic relics, fondly remembered by enthusiasts for their role in the evolution of personal music consumption. They symbolize a bygone era of tactile engagement with music, where the act of selecting, inserting, and playing a tape was a ritualistic part of the listening experience. While technology has moved on, the cultural impact of these formats remains significant, highlighting an important chapter in the history of audio technology. Number 3. Swamp coolers. Swamp coolers, an early form of automotive air conditioning, were popular in the 1940s and 1950s. These window-mounted devices operated on a simple principle: evaporative cooling. The cooler, filled with water, used the evaporation process to lower the air temperature inside the car. To function, air was drawn through a wet pad within the cooler. As the air passed through, it caused the water to evaporate, which absorbed heat and cooled the air. This cooler air was then directed into the car's interior, providing relief on hot days. Swamp coolers were especially popular in arid and dry climates, where low humidity made evaporative cooling more effective. They were an affordable alternative to early automotive air conditioning systems, which were expensive and less common at the time. Despite their ingenuity, swamp coolers had limitations. They required frequent refilling with water and were less effective in humid conditions. Additionally, they could be cumbersome, sticking out of a car window and obstructing the view. As modern air conditioning systems became more efficient and affordable, swamp coolers faded into automotive history, remembered as a clever but ultimately temporary solution to staying cool on the road. Number 2. Push-button transmission. The push-button transmission was a unique feature found in some cars primarily in the 1950s and 1960s, notably Chrysler vehicles like the Chrysler Imperial and Dodge Dart. Instead of a traditional gear shift lever, these cars featured a dashboard or console-mounted array of buttons labeled with letters corresponding to different gears. This innovative design was marketed as a futuristic convenience, offering drivers a simpler way to select gears without the need for a mechanical lever. It aimed to streamline the interior design and enhance driver ergonomics. However, despite its novelty, the push-button transmission eventually fell out of favor due to several factors. One challenge was the risk of accidentally pressing the wrong button, which could lead to unintended gear shifts and potential safety concerns. Additionally, drivers accustomed to traditional shift levers found the push-button style less intuitive and more difficult to operate, especially under stressful conditions. Automakers phased out push-button transmissions in favor of more familiar and user-friendly gear shift mechanisms, such as column shifters and floor-mounted shifters. While they remain a nostalgic curiosity for automotive enthusiasts, they represent a brief yet intriguing chapter in automotive history where innovation sometimes outweighed practicality. Number 1. Curb feelers. Curb feelers were small, spring-loaded metal rods or wires attached to the fenders of cars, primarily popular in the mid-20th century. Their purpose was simple yet effective: to prevent damage to the car's wheels or hubcaps by alerting drivers when they were getting too close to the curb while parking. These accessories protruded outward, making contact with the curb before the wheels did, thereby providing an audible and tactile warning to the driver. This tactile feedback helped drivers avoid scraping or damaging their wheels, and was particularly useful in cities with narrow streets or tight parking spaces. Curb feelers were most commonly seen on cars from the 1940s through to the 1960s. However, as cars became wider, parking assistance technologies advanced, and wheel designs evolved to be more resilient. The need for curb feelers diminished. By the 1970s and 1980s, they had largely fallen out of fashion and are now considered a nostalgic relic of automotive history, remembered fondly by enthusiasts and collectors of vintage cars. Today, modern cars rely on cameras, sensors, and advanced parking assist systems to aid drivers in parking safely and accurately. These were the 25 vehicle innovations that did not stand the test of time. Comment below if you think we missed something you encountered. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.